Hey everyone, it's Kim and welcome back to Bookmarks and Breadsticks. Welcome back to Bookmarks and Breadsticks. If you're new to my channel, I focus on everything bookish and foodie, and I am here today to bring you my July wrap-up. So I read 7 books in the month of July with a pretty even split between fiction and non-fiction. First, let's start with the fiction books. I have 2 young adult here and 1 adult romance / romantic contemporary, rom-com, whatever you want to call it. First is a new book that came out in October of 2021, which I guess doesn't sound so new anymore considering it's August, which is kind of crazy, but it's Where There's a Whisk by Sarah J. Schmidt. This is very much teen Iron Chef or teen Top Chef for sure. It's filled with, young love, drama, and food. So Peyton comes from a rougher background and is on the show. There are 2 love interests with her and a nice diverse cast. Going into the book, you have to know that they're on a reality TV show. So it's both a positive and a negative that you get a diverse cast. The diverse cast is a reflection of the show, which wants to pull the diversity angle and edits each teenager with a specific look and feel. You have a black chef, you have a daughter of a prestigious New York City restaurant, you have the love interest from New Jersey, the other love interest from Hawaii who's like the hunk, and then you have Peyton. Peyton is very much from a poor area. Her father is in jail for embezzling, but Peyton refuses to play into that stereotype or package that the network is trying to force her into, and it causes some conflict along the way, along with a potential budding romance. She wants to win so that she can go to a prestigious culinary school and get out of her town and make something of her life. And while some of her friends are there for support, not everyone's really on Peyton's side. It's very cute. It is heavy on the tropes though, because it takes place on a reality TV show with a bunch of high schoolers. So know that going in, but I found it fluffy, fun, and a really quick delight read. Not everything has to be serious all the time. This second book is a new book on shelves in August that I was sent by Penguin Teen. Thank you very much. And that is Ozar On Fire. Ozar On Fire is the second book by Olivia Abthi, and I fell in love with her first book, Perfectly Parvin, and this is a second book. They are not sequels by any means, just the second by this author, and I love reading books with Persian representation from Persian writers. Doesn't matter how old I am, I will always support seeing this kind of diversity and representation in writing. So Ozar is 14 years old and she dreams of becoming a singer-songwriter. But unfortunately, when she was a child, she was a very colicky baby, so she has these nodes on her throat, so she has a very deep, raspy voice, and it hurts to talk. So what do you do when you're a singer-songwriter but you can't actually sing? She hides all of her songs within this journal, and she plays a bunch of different instruments. And one day, she accidentally causes some damage in a janitor's supply closet and is on the hook for about $1,000. Now, being that she lives with her single mother and her father's across the country, she's not really in the position to find that kind of money. So the principal makes a deal with her. Join the Battle of the Bands. Just join. If you win, we'll take the damages from the $10,000 prize pool, but at least if you just enter, we'll forget all about the fees and damages. The problem is now that Ozar needs to find a band, more importantly, a singer. This was really fun. This is definitely on the younger side of young adult, being that she's 14, but I loved so much about this book. I loved the relationships, how much character growth our protagonist goes through, and also the great representation of tons of delicious Persian food. I also love that Ozar is of a mixed background, and I think it was interesting to see all of those different cuisines come together in a really fun way. This is on shelves again, August 2022, and thank you so much, Penguin Teen, for sending this to me. Third and final book in the fiction side of my wrap-up is The Kindred Spirits Supper Club by Amy E. Reichert. She is also the writer of The Optimist's Guide to Letting Go. She has quite a few contemporary romances, and I think some of the other ones actually have food. I'm pretty sure I actually accidentally well, not accidentally. When I unhauled 25 books earlier this year, I think some of her earlier works were in there, but it's okay. I can always get them used somewhere. So I read the Kindred Spirits Supper Club. First off, I really was hoping because there was a duck on the cover, there'd be more about the duck. The duck was not that vital to the storyline. It had me a little disappointed because not only is the duck on the front, the duck is on the back. I just was hoping for a duck. But anyway, Sabrina has moved back to Wisconsin Dells after life in, you know, the big city, trying to run away actually from a power passed down through the women in her family. The women of Sabrina's family are able to communicate with the dead, and it is actually their job to help these spirits pass on. So when she returns home, she calls it the family curse. She really doesn't want to deal with it. She's always redirected these spirits to her mom, who's much better at it. But there's always been this one spirit named Molly, a bubbly rom-com loving ghost who stuck by Sabrina's side throughout her entire lonely childhood. So this spirit's been around for 30 years at this point. Her personal life starts looking up when she meets Ray. He's a new local restaurateur, and he invites Sabrina to work for him and his supper club he's trying to revitalize. He's inherited this, you know, kind of Moose Lodge style restaurant that's been around, that belonged to his uncle who recently passed away. He wants to modernize it and keep it going, and he is also from a big city and finds that this new slower change of pace, this new slower life, is exactly what he wants. But the longer that Sabrina stays in her town, the harder it is to resist not only her feelings for Ray while she's trying to get a new job and leave and to go back to the big city, but also harder to ignore the fact that she has something to do with Molly and needs to find and help Molly pass on. I thought this was super cute. I'm not big into the supernatural element or the communication with ghosts, probably because I lost my father last year. So for me, it hit areas I don't think the book meant to hit, if that makes sense. This is meant to be a funny romantic comedy, but here she is talking to people who have recently passed on, people with regrets. It, for me, brought up a lot of emotions I wasn't ready and didn't want to deal with. I usually read contemporary romance for the escapism, so this wasn't the best reading experience for me. However, I do think it's a sweet and charming book that you will enjoy. Next up to the nonfiction, I read The Man Who Ate Too Much, The Life and Times of James Beard, and it's a new autobiography. It was nominated for the James Beard Award in Food Writing for 2022. I'll put the picture right here because I not only listened to it, it is actually one of the books I know is in my Unwrap My TBR pile, but I can't actually find it. So it came out on Scribd as a new audiobook, and I am doing a project right now for a longer video that'll be out at the end of the month, comparing the 3 nominated James Beard books for 2022. So I don't want to say too much about the book, but I read it even though I haven't unwrapped it yet. So I think you get what I'm trying to tell you. There'll be more about that book soon. Second book I read was for a book club I'm in, and if you are a fan or are ever interested in nonfiction food writing, food memoirs, food history, book clubs, one is set up through Kitchen and Letter Arts in partnership with 92Y. I will put the link down below. We just finished the summer book club, so I don't anticipate another one until spring of 2023. But one of the books of the 4 that we read was What We Hunger For, and this is an edited group of stories, refugee and immigrant stories about food and family, and all of them take place within Minnesota. This is from the Minnesota Historical Society Press. So I really liked reading a lot of short stories and the different kinds of food and culture that was in Minnesota. I had no idea Minnesota had so many interesting food traditions, like Hmong food is there, and it was a really fun read. Let me just read some of the back for you really quick. Food can be a unifier and a healer, bringing people together across generations and cultures. Sharing a meal often leads to sharing stories and deepening our understanding of each other and our respective histories and practices, global and local. In this collection, 14 writers from refugee and immigrant families write about their complicated, poignant, funny, difficult, joyful, and ongoing relationships to food, cooking, and eating. They journey to Algeria, to Thailand, to Uganda to soothe body and mind, connect with generations past and present through rituals and recipes handed down from parent to child, and savor the flavors of home, whether creating familiar dishes in less familiar places or coming to appreciate ancestral wisdom translated into modern foodways. Travel far and near with these gifted writers as they share their flavorful, luminous stories. I almost said luscious. Luminous stories. Very fun book. Glad I read it. And I kind of like having short stories and like essays to read because you can pick it up and put it down and go on as you please. This is under, again, Minnesota Historical Society Press under their race and ethnic studies / food. Next up is my favorite read of the month, and that is Truffle Boy by Ian. Next up is my favorite read of the month, Truffle Boy, My Unexpected Journey Through the Exotic Food Underground. It is all about Ian's life becoming the youngest purveyor of truffles in the United States, I believe at the age of 23. This book, I flew through it. I love adventure stories like this. Ian is New York City's leading truffle importer and boasts a devoted clientele from top chefs nationwide, including Jean-Georges, David Chang, Sean Brock, and David Bouley. But before he was purveying the world's most expensive fungus and the country's most esteemed chefs, Ian was just a food-obsessed teenager in rural Arkansas, a misfit with a peculiar fascination for rare and exotic ingredients. I really, again, favorite book of the month. I flew through it. He wrote the book and I think he was like 23. So I would love for Truffle Boy or for Ian to come back and maybe write again in the future now that he's an adult. He has worked for other people as a truffle purveyor. He now owns his own empire, essentially. I believe he's now settled down and had a family, which doesn't stop his work, but I really enjoyed this. I love stories like these. I love someone who just was obsessed with food in the middle of America and just somehow, it sounds crazy that his parents were like, sure, go ahead, go to school in New York City. And then he calls up and goes, Mom, I'm dropping out of school and I'm just going to become a truffle salesman. And they went, okay, but if shit hits the fan, we have no money to bail you out, but good luck. And it was just so much fun. I also know that a Book Olive hauled this book. I don't know if it was this year or last year, but she had hauled 2 books, this one and Truffle Hound, and it was on my shelves behind me of many, many books that I needed to read, and I just went for it, and I am so glad I did. This is my favorite book so far of this month. Next up is a new May 2022 release that I purchased and, pre-order purchased and read. I pre-ordered and purchased it in May, read it this month, and that's Catching Hell, The Insider Story to Seafood from Ocean to Plate by Alan Ricca with Joe Muto. This very much is a great book that would be a companion to For the Love of Beef. I really thought we were going to get more of the fishing industry in terms of I don't know how to explain it. He tells you the story just like he says in the book. He is a fish purveyor. He is the one who accepts fishes, packs them, and sends them out to all of the restaurants in the world. And he gives you tips and tricks along the way, how mislabeling can happen, how you can be scammed, and it is really informative and interesting. I was just hoping for a little bit of a deeper level of emotional connection, or just, I don't know. It just didn't ring out the way I was hoping. It kind of reminds me of Pat LaFreda's book as well that I read this year about meat, where is it? So Pat LaFreda's book, Glorious Beef, very much reminds me of Catching Hell, or Catching Hell reminds me of Pat LaFreda's book. Really informative from an expert who knows how he's been swindled, knows how to teach you what to look out for, but wasn't exactly that deep for me. I was hoping for a little bit more out of it. He is an author now, or someone I will follow on Instagram to see what he is doing along the way. Alan Ricca is his name, again, the author of this book. This book was also only 166 pages, so I don't want to say I have book regret, because I am glad I read it and I did learn a lot from it, but the idea that I paid $27 for a book that's under 200 pages and that I didn't quite love is a little disappointing. This very well might be a book I list on Pango later this year, which, if you guys don't know, I do have a Pango bookshop where some of the books that, when I unhaul books, I sometimes put them in my little free library right outside my front house. Surprise to no one, not everyone wants nonfiction food writing books. So sometimes they sit in the little free library. So I have started to list my nonfiction food writing books on my Pango Bookshop, which I will link down below. So just remember, in general, I am trying, any of like the food fiction books, like the Kindred Spirit Supper Club, that's probably gonna go out into my little free library. But something like this, a brand new hardcover, I'm probably gonna list on Pango Books, and usually I'm only charging $10 or less, even though I paid $27 for the full price book. So a couple books are 10, most of the time I'm listing them at 8. Anyway, sorry, that was talking way too much shop about Pango Books. This was one of the 7 books I read this month, and unfortunately it's probably the most disappointing read of the month. So there you go, those are the 7 books I read this month. 3 fiction, 4 nonfiction. You just don't have the 4th one here because it's in my unwrapped TBR pile. Let me know in the comments below which book you were the most interested in. Have you heard of any? Is anyone gonna read Ozar On Fire that comes out next month? Let me know in the comments below. Please don't forget to hit like and subscribe, and click the links in the description box for my Pango Books, my Instagram, or just to hang out with me on social media. I hope you're well. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.